Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to the game day edition of the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. With us today is the Angel of the Big House, Michigan beat writer Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. Before we hear from her, let's get it going as we always do with my view from Section 17. We did what we needed to do on Saturday against Maryland. That set the stage for the biggest matchup in this series since 2016 down in Columbus, when everything was on the line. We lost 30-27 in overtime. We all remember it well. No need to rehash it. In August, I did not think we would be in this position on Thanksgiving weekend. I'm certain most of you didn't either. This team has exceeded all of our expectations up to this point. They are mentally tough, they're balanced, and they play great complementary football. They are a very good football team with a 10-1 record, no question. As Jim Harbaugh said at his presser on Monday, his players understand what this game means, and they have been preparing all year for this game. It is an opportunity we have not experienced very often in the last 20 years. Now, not many of the experts think we have a chance this Saturday, the so-called experts, I should say. Ohio State is a very good football team. Some may say great. They are an offensive juggernaut. There is no question. We have to play our best game of the year and get off to a fast start. It can be done. I really believe it can be done. That is, after all, why we play the game. I know we're ready. You know we're ready. We just have to go out there on Saturday and say, you know what? Enough is enough. It's our day. It's our house, and we want this game. My guest today says she thinks Michigan has a chance to win this game. She thinks Ohio State has some holes on defense we can exploit. She also thinks Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo will be key factors. And if they can get to CJ Stroud, this game will be up for grabs. Joining me next is the Angel of the Big House, Michigan beat writer Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. So stay with us. Here with us on our game day segment as we get ready for the game again, beat writer Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. Welcome back, Angelique.
This feels like a tradition like Thanksgiving, Mike. You and I talking the week of the Michigan. Oh my gosh, wait, let's delete that. The Michigan-Ohio State game.
Yes.
We were talking about Michigan State earlier, and I misspoke. But yeah, no, I mean, I feel like my week is not complete unless we speak.
I mentioned to you last week when we were corresponding that we were 1-11 or something like that since we started taping during the game week, but my math was a little bit off. I thought about, oh wait, we didn't play Ohio State last year, so we're actually a little better than I thought. I think it's 1-10. So this year it means something. It is going to be incredible Saturday in the Big House. Looking back on last Saturday, Michigan had to take care of business to get to this point. And, a little bit of a sluggish start against Maryland, but they got it going and looked really good, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, it did. It took them a couple series. The first, two of the first three, they went 3 and out, but they did sandwiched in between was a touchdown to Schoonmaker. And yes, they did. They got it going in every phase. And I thought that was an encouraging sign going into this week, that they really were clicking. It felt, I know, that's the one thing that a lot of college football analysts, television analysts that I've watched have said, that they think that this is a very complete team, that Michigan's very complete. And I thought that's how I would describe their play on Saturday at Maryland. It's just complete. They scored in every phase, and they just looked, Maryland's not a very good team, but they did the job they were supposed to against a team like that. And I think that's also been consistent this year. Michigan's beaten up on teams that they were supposed to beat up on. I guess you could say, well, Rutgers, whatever. There were some of those slips. But yeah, I thought that was a really nice win for them going into this game. And I didn't think that they would be a trap game. This team has been very focused, Mike, week to week, and they hit the reset button after the Michigan State loss, and they called it a 4-game season, and then it was a 3-game season, and now it's a 1-game season.
Just the last takeaway from the Maryland game, really the last couple of weeks, Angelique, we'd been talking about the lack of production in the red zone. That's really picked up in the last 2 weeks. They're really starting to get 7 instead of settle for 3.
It's funny, isn't it? I mean, I've been harping on that week after week, and then all of a sudden when they start scoring touchdowns in the red zone, I stopped talking about it. So I made a point today to mention that, you always want to pick on the negative,
mm-hmm.
and then you forget to say, well, they've done it, pat on the back, and they had 6 red zone trips, and they scored 5 touchdowns. Again, it was against Maryland, but, if they hadn't done that against Maryland, then there would be a lot of criticism. So they did it. They scored in different ways, and obviously Donovan Edwards was a key to this performance, but they had I thought Cade McNamara played really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that they got a really great game out of him. And J.J. McCarthy looked like maybe his best game he's had when he went into that game. And but yeah, I mean, they're creeping up the national list. They were 84th, and now they're 81st in touchdown percentage in the red zone. But that, you're right. The last 2 weeks, that's something they focused on, and they definitely have looked way better in that area.
I watched that Ohio State-Michigan State game on Saturday, Angelique, and man, they took the Spartans to the woodshed. It was impressive. Have you ever seen a better Ohio State offense in all of your years covering this?
Well, I mean, this is a good one. It's lightning quick, and they score so fast too. Not just the athletes are fast, but they score so fast, and they just have so many targets. I mean, Stroud, he just can pick his poison. And, there's been some really good Ohio State teams I've covered, but this one just feels more automatic and efficient. And, I think Ryan Day took what Urban Meyer left him and has created something even more interesting on offense. And I watched that game, too, on Saturday. I was trying to work a little bit, and so I'd work and look at the TV, and they'd score again. I'd go back to work a little bit, and I'd look, and they'd score again. And it was just like, wow, this is like a pinball machine. And I'm pretty sure they could have really piled on the points in the second half, and chose not to, and which is probably the smart thing, get guys rested. But this is going to be a challenge for Michigan. There's no doubt. I mean, and it's not breaking news. Everybody knows that about the number one ranked offense in the country. But I think Ryan Day I've always thought he was a really excellent coach, and I think that he's made people forget about Urban Meyer in Columbus. I really do think that.
And Mike McDonald will earn his pay this week. We're not going to stop this Ohio State offense. I mean, that's a given, but Michigan has got to find some ways, to be disruptive and get pressure on Stroud for starters, Angelique.
Well, and that's a strength, right, for Michigan. You've got Aiden Hutchinson, who is so motivated for this game. I mean, this is the game that he has circled personally. He wants this win. Everybody talks about his dad, Chris, and everything he achieved, and being an All-American, being the defensive lineman of the year in the Big Ten. These are all things on Aiden's list, but right up there is a win over Ohio State. So his motor's going to be going nuts. It always is. And then you've got David Ojabo. So I think that they've got the bookends that can be disruptive. I mean, will they? I don't know. I mean, but I think that there's a good chance. And I don't think CJ Stroud has faced that duo like that. Definitely not a duo, and I'm not sure they face that much pressure like Aiden and Ojabo can provide. So that to me is absolutely a key. And then you have all the other pieces in the defense. I mean, the secondary, I think we keep saying every week, well, they haven't been that tested. But they are getting tested. And the one guy I had thought in the preseason who was going to emerge is DJ Turner. And then he has the pick six last week. And I thought, see, I thought he'd be a good one. So, we'll see. But it does start up front. And I think that plays into Michigan's strength. But, that's not taking anything away from Ohio State, because everybody knows how damaging they can be and how quickly they can be damaging.
No, absolutely. And, I've talked to a lot of fans since the Maryland game, and, some of them say, hey, we have to make Ohio State one-dimensional. And that just stops me in my tracks, because you can do that to some teams, maybe a lot of teams with a good defense, but this is an offense with a quarterback that's thrown for almost 3,500 yards, a bazillion touchdowns, and they have an incredible running back, over 1,000 yards. You have to pick your poison when you're playing Ohio State, but I think it all comes down to, you don't scheme anything really special for this game. You just have to take it to another limit, don't you, and try to stop them.
You do, and I think that's where, we talked so much earlier in the season about Mike McDonald and keeping guys fresh and the rotation, and maybe it's been a little bit less so later in the season, but a lot of guys have gotten reps in game reps, and that's going to be important. Is you're going to have your key guys out there, no doubt. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson's always out there. Maybe you get Ojabo in there, you work him in a little bit more, but these guys have been fresh. Is that going to be enough? I mean, you can't have the mishap like you had in communication, like you had at Michigan State. I think they fixed that after that game. So the room for error on both sides for Michigan is slim to none. And do they have to play a perfect game? Pretty close. And, we talked, and I know, I'm not trying to excuse the offense yet, but, we talked about that before we started this podcast, Mike. Michigan has to start fast. Teams cannot get behind quickly against Ohio State, or it's just going to end very badly. And we saw that on Saturday. So Michigan has to be perfect on both sides of the ball. And let's not forget special teams, because I think that's been a difference maker for Michigan this year. And I think that could be a difference on Saturday to keep them in the game.
Absolutely. And you've got to think, if the defense can hold up the first couple of series against Ohio State, that will be mentally a real boost for them. But, yeah, we did talk about this before the podcast, and I'm just going to harp on it all week. Those first two possessions, Michigan has got to not only eat some clock, I think, to let Ohio State see that, hey, this offense is pretty darn good, and they can run the football, they can mix it up, but you've got to get points on the board and not three.
Absolutely. I mean, and that was the thing that, people like me were criticizing, is you go to Nebraska, you go to Michigan State, you get in the red zone and you come away with 3 points, and you leave so many points on the board and I on the field, pardon me. And, I thought that was one thing that I thought was interesting that Cade McNamara said after the Maryland game, is that, after every game he feels like, yeah, there's plays I want back. But as the weeks have gone on, he feels that less and less. So he feels like he's being more efficient. He feels like he's directing the offense and getting those touchdowns that they've needed, and that they needed in a Nebraska game, that they needed at Michigan State. And he feels like he is definitely turned that gear, turn on that switch, whatever cliche you want to use, that gets them those touchdowns. And he's feeling more confident, and I think that's very important going into this game. A guy who's never played in the Michigan-Ohio State game, your quarterback, to have the confidence that Cade McNamara has right now is huge. And, you can't play the compare game. I'm sure he can't in his mind. A lot of players like to say, I want to see what this running back does. I'm a running back for this team. He can't compare himself to CJ Stroud because they run a completely different offense with different weapons. But he's feeling very good in his own skin, and I think that's a very, very big positive for Michigan.
And another big positive would be if he can have some early success and get on a roll in the first few series in that game, because if he can do that, that can change everything.
It can. And, there was a stat during the Maryland game that Michigan is second behind Georgia in minutes trailing in totality this season. It's like 40 minutes. And that's not very much. And then they have played ahead. They've had the lead, and when they've trailed briefly, Nebraska and Penn State, they've been able to turn it around and win those games. But those teams give you that luxury and that ability. Ohio State's not going to. So you need to start fast, get a lead, keep it close for sure. If you are down by 3, not 14, because I don't think this team is that equipped. I don't think we've really seen if this team is equipped to come back from a deep hole. And, that was one thing that we saw a lot of last year. They get down fast, and then, gosh, they just didn't have it. They could not come back. And I'm not sure how this team is because it hasn't been tested greatly in that sense. But I don't think they want to be tested against Ohio State on that. So they need to get those points. They need to get them early. They need to get those touchdowns, not points. They need to get those. I know Jake Moody wants to he's always envisioned winning the Ohio State game on a field goal. But I think Michigan probably would rather have touchdowns.
I agree. I think all of our hearts would not want it to come down to a field goal either, but especially with the history in that game of Michigan field goal kicking. But this week, do you think we'll see more of Donovan Edwards incorporated into the game plan?
I think so. My hunch is that Blake Corum will be ready too. I mean, he was on the sideline in Maryland. I didn't think he was going to play. I mean, he was going home to Baltimore, and it was fun to watch him on the sideline just stay active and get the fans going, and he'd sort of run down the sideline, throwing his hands up, and doing the same for his teammates during the game. So I think you'll see Blake Corum again. You've got Hassan Haskins, who he's not unsung because people talk about him so much, but his work, what he does on the field, just never ceases to impress me. Just how strong he is, how he just keeps going, keeps those legs going. But they've missed Blake Corum too. They missed that change up and what he brings. But then you get Donovan Edwards and what he did in the catching the ball out of the backfield and his speed. I'm just like, wow. I mean, this kid is as good as advertised. And for Harbaugh isn't one to make comparisons or hype a player too much. I mean, he'll say, "Oh, I love so and so," but he doesn't say this kid's going to be fantastic. And then he says after the Maryland game that Donovan Edwards is destined for greatness, and that sure looked like it. Again, it's the sample size was Maryland, but he still did it, and he did it with some real athleticism that was impressive. So I have a feeling you see all three of them on Saturday.
I think so too, and it gives Ohio State something else to worry about, and that's the best thing.
Exactly. And speaking of something else to worry about, JJ McCarthy, who he did look good on Saturday. He did give them that sprinkle that they need that Cade can't provide. So they do have to prepare. And we've talked so much about the great Ohio State offense, and the defense was not so great early in the season. It definitely has improved, the Ohio State defense, but it's it has its holes, and I think that's something that's something important to consider when we talk about Michigan's offense, is that they'll have a chance against this Ohio State defense.
I think they will too. And you just mentioned J.J. McCarthy. I thought Saturday was his best game. He always looks confident, but he made good decisions and showed us exactly what kind of talent the guy has with his arm and his feet. Do you really think we might see him Saturday?
I do. Yeah, I mean, I know. We only saw Cade against Penn State, and I thought that was the right decision. I actually started thinking back to the Tom Brady, Drew Henson time, and how Tom Brady took over that last third of the season and started and played those games. But yeah, I do. I think that J.J. McCarthy deserves a chance. I know that he had some issues with the Michigan State game, but I don't think that's a reason not to play him in this game. That game was on the road. He sometimes does freshman things, as you would expect, but I do think he gives them something different. Especially in the red zone too. I think he's a weapon that they can use. And it's something else for Ohio State to think about.
Well, I haven't seen the odds yet. I know they're out. I usually don't pay any attention to them, not even for this game. But I think it's safe to say there aren't many people in the college football world that are giving Michigan much of a chance, are they?
No, they're not. And I think that my gut feeling is Michigan is going to give Ohio State a very, very good effort. And we'll keep it closer than people think. I think that the early line is I think Ohio State's a touchdown or so favorite. I think that's fair, and I bet you it grows. I don't follow it that much either, Mike. I just don't. But I think that's probably what will happen. And but yeah, I think most people think Ohio State's just this offensive juggernaut, which it is, and that will be enough to overcome a team that's very balanced. And that's why I think Michigan has a chance, because they have been balanced, and they did flex all those muscles on Saturday against Maryland, and I think that gives Ohio State something to think about as well. That they can't overlook the special teams aspect of it. They really can't, and they gave them a little bit more to think about with that Barrett play and the AJ Henning. Those are all little things that. Here's something else for you to think about. Here, put this on your plate this week as you prepare. So, I like that. I thought that was brilliant. That was very. I thought that was very strategic.
I know Ohio State. Ryan Day was saying after the game he keeps a book on Michigan. He keeps adding to the book, and he's going to have to add a few more notes this week because of some of the wrinkles, X factors like Donovan Edwards and what we did on special teams. So, one thing we know though. With this game, Angelique, the game, it brings out the best usually in each team. And Michigan's going to have to make some big plays on both sides of the ball just to have a chance, aren't they?
They really are. And that's why I think of an Aiden Hutchinson making some big plays. I mean, he wants to tie or beat his dad's sack record. So he wants to get in there. He wants to meet CJ Stroud a couple times and not be friendly during those meetings. So, he's got some personal stats he wants to achieve. And then you've got, the guys on Cade McNamara absolutely wants to have a big game. He doesn't talk about that. That's one thing I also like about him. He's very workmanlike, businesslike, and it's not about him having gaudy stats. But, I think, who did we see at Michigan State? Andrel Anthony. I mean, maybe this guy, he's got tremendous hands. Maybe he has a big game. But somebody is going to have to, or several people will have to have big games. And, I think that's, the other, you mentioned Ryan Day keeping the book on Michigan. And that's the other thing I thought was interesting this year, Mike, is in that preseason at Big Ten Media Days. I mean, you know what it's like to every week or every season, Michigan sort of tight-lipped about Ohio State. They don't talk about it, at least under Harbaugh. And Harbaugh gets sort of, sets his jaw, doesn't talk about it very much, doesn't say, you try to get him to gauge about the guarantee he made. And, that was, years ago. I'm not going to pull back the onion. And this year they're all like, oh, yeah, we want to beat Ohio State. Yeah, we got signs up. Yeah, we've got the Beat Ohio drill. And that's been refreshing. And they've been open about how much this game means to them from way weeks ago to now. And I think that will allow them to be looser too. Ryan Day's got his book, but Michigan sort of opened its book a little bit this year on at least how they're approaching this game. And I also think that's going to help keep them, looser, understanding how big this moment is, but also knowing that they've been preparing for it all season. And that's when you have big plays from big players stepping up on this, enormous stage.
It is enormous. And, when I was watching one of the promos for the game last night on TV, they were going through the years, the players on both sides who did just that, made big plays, and they are legends forever. And that's what this game can do. That's the exciting part.
It is. Maybe there's a Biaka Batuka performance out there on Saturday for Michigan. You never know. There could be a Charles Woodson performance. I don't want to say there's anybody like Charles Woodson on this team, but have that kind of performance. There is an opportunity out there, and I love that this game is meaningful. I'm sure Ryan Day is going to beat it in their heads that last year Michigan canceled the game because of the COVID outbreak, and they'll use that. They want to beat them up for that reason too. But Michigan has so many reasons to want to be motivated for this win, not just to break the Ohio State win streak, but to go to the Big Ten championship and be part of something that the program has not been part of since 2004, and to take that next step into the college football playoff. It was on the line. 5 years ago, the JT Barrett game.
Right.
There was a lot on the line that game too, and it was close. So Michigan has to stop being just close. Obviously, they need to take it to that next level. And my goodness, this would be a shock the world moment, wouldn't it?
It sort of reminds me in some ways of 1969 when, the week of that game. Of course, there wasn't as much coverage of college football or anything really back then, but it was pretty much the same attitude. Michigan they don't have a chance against this Ohio State team, which might be, and I remember this well, might be the greatest college football team ever assembled. And, one of the things when I think about this game this week, looking over the last 20 years, Angelique, it's been all Ohio State. They've dominated this series, and I thought, a lot of the kids that are playing for Ohio State, they think of the series as this is the way it is. We just dominate these guys. They could be a little bit overconfident and not take Michigan seriously because they have seen in their lifetime no reason to.
That is an excellent point. It really is. And I've been covering this team long enough to remember when Michigan dominated the rivalry, when John Cooper was at Ohio State. And those were really, really good Ohio State teams, and Michigan would just put it together and cause havoc and win that game, and then Ohio State would then go lose the bowl game, which has sort of been the pattern the last few years for Michigan: lose that game and lose the bowl game. And but you're right; these players don't remember a day when Michigan was in the W. It must be an amazing feeling for the Ohio State players to go into this thinking, okay, this is just, we play this game every year. It's an important game, but we win it. And I do think that's when you've got guys on this Michigan team like an Aiden Hutchinson, whose father played and had success against Ohio State. You've got Caden Colasar on this team, whose dad played at Michigan and had obvious success. And about those. And I think that's an important thread in a program, to keep some of those legacy players who understand what the past was like, and they know it, they learned it from their fathers, and they're carrying it on. And I think that those are, I think, Aiden Hutchinson has been an important locker room force for this team, not just for his performance on the field, but what he brings in terms of his raw emotion, and also just these kinds of moments where, they want to return Michigan to some sort of glory in this rivalry, and build this foundation, start from here, and stop allowing Ohio State to collect their gold pants every year. And that's a big motivation, and they are going to draw on those guys this week to help some of the younger players know about what this rivalry is about.
But, after 11 games, Angelique, we can say Michigan is a much improved team. They're far better than I think you and I thought they were going to be. And they're mentally tough, something I wasn't sure if we'd see that this year to this degree. I mean, they're ready for this game. I have no doubt about that. And I think some year Michigan is just going to have to find a way to beat these guys, regardless of how good they are. And you know what? Now's as good as any time. You're at home. You're confident. It's been a long time since this game has had so much on the line. And I think it's the way it should be, Angelique.
You're right, Mike. And you bring up mental toughness, and that's an excellent point. I mean, you can talk X's and O's, you can talk about all the players, but it really has been. I thought that was an issue the last few years, is the mental toughness, that fourth quarter drive, and there often would be that fade. And I think the win at Penn State really was important on that level. That here's a team that had some adversity at the end with the strip sack, and then they just came back and very poised. And I think there are a lot of people who don't really appreciate Cade McNamara, but he doesn't, to use a Harbaugh word, he doesn't flinch. He just got back in there and directed this drive, and they won the game. And I think that's been a difference, at least for me watching this team, is this team finishes. We can talk about the Michigan State game, of course, but I think generally speaking, this has been that was something I was going to look for is how does this team look in the fourth quarter? How do they look in the fourth quarter of the season, in a sense, and finishing teams? And they have proven that. They are finishers, and it's an intangible that, again, I keep saying important, using that word, but that is important at this stage in the season and going against Ohio State. And, I think that there is that no-quit element. And I can't say that I could say that in the previous seasons.
Well, final question for you before we let you get away, Angelique. I know it is a crazy busy week for you. Michigan, as we've said, has to play the game, a great game on both sides of the ball, better than anything we've seen from them this year if they want to stay in this game. Does your gut tell you, from having seen them all year, that they have the personnel to beat this team, this Ohio State team, on Saturday?
I've watched a lot of Ohio State this year. Obviously I'm from Ohio, and I always, you and I both love this week, so I'm always keeping an eye on Ohio State throughout the season. I do think that they have some weaknesses on defense. I do think if Michigan starts fast and attacks, and I really do think you got to go with Hassan Haskins. You have to go with what has worked, but you also have to be able to show some variety, which I thought that they showed last week. And I do think that there's a chance. Defensively, I think they can slow Ohio State. They're not going to stop them, obviously, but I think that they do have that ability. And I think it's going to be, it's going to be closer. I'm not sure what people think. Do they think it's going to be, like that score last week? Ohio State against Michigan State. I don't think it's going to be anything like that. I really don't. I just think that Michigan's a more balanced team and won't come out and stray from what has gotten them there, like Michigan State did last week in those opening drives against Ohio State. But yes, I do think Michigan matches up decently and can make this a game.
Well, it's just wonderful that here we are, the last game of the year. This is like so many other great Michigan-Ohio State weekends in our lifetime, in the past, that it's all on the line. Much so, I think, for Michigan, more important for Jim and the team. So it's going to be a great environment. Hopefully we don't see a sea of red in the stadium. or scarlet. Sorry, guys. But yeah, I think we might too. But at any rate, with us today for the 12th year in a row, I guess I should correct myself again, the 11th year in a row, because we didn't play Ohio State last year, has been beat writer Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. As always, it wouldn't be the same if we didn't have you with us for this game, Angelique, and I wish you and your family a very happy Thanksgiving and enjoy Saturday.
And you have a happy Thanksgiving, too, and your listeners as well. And it's going to be, 35 degrees? It's going to feel like a Michigan-Ohio State game on Saturday. And you and I both love it. I think most people in the Big Ten and certainly in Michigan and Ohio love this game. So I can't wait. I love this week. We both do. And I appreciate you always including me.
On Quick Hits today, at his presser Monday, Jim had no injury updates. The only update we've had recently was from Blake Corum himself. At his turkey giveaway on Sunday, he made it sound like he could play this Saturday. We shall see. Overall, we are in pretty good shape for Week 12 of the season. We were scheduled to have Ohio State radio play-by-play voice Paul Keels with us on Thursday on the Visitors Edition, but he also serves as the voice of OSU Hoops, so his schedule is completely out of whack this week. So joining us will be Dan Hope from the Ohio State site 11 Warriors. We'll have that show up on Thursday morning, so before or after you demolish your Turkey Day feast, don't forget to tune us in. On the Visitors Edition, I'll also have some interesting game day notes and my final thoughts before we play the biggest game in this rivalry since 2016. That will do it for now. Thanks again to the Angel of the Big House, Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News, for joining us once again to preview the game. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Make sure you join us again Thursday. Until we meet again, take care, and as always, go blue.
Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!